welcome back to another episode of What Are We Driving? Today I'm in one of my other cars. This is a 2010 Toyota Crown Athlete, and this is the V6 version. So this has the 2GR FSE,
ETC カードが挿入されていません
which is the direct injection version of the 2GR. So we're making about 232 kilowatts at I think at 6,400 RPM, and also 380 Newton meters of torque at about 4,300 RPM, if I remember that correctly. So this is the normal V6. It's not a hybrid, and it's just a standard Athlete, so we don't have some of those additional features that you'd normally find in a G package variant. Now, as for how much this car weighs, being a luxury saloon, we've got about 1,650 kilograms. That figure can go up depending on the features that have been picked. I'm going to assume that this car is very close to that because it doesn't have as many features that would add that additional bit of weight to other cars. So they have a 71 litre capacity fuel tank, and we can roughly do 0 to 100 in about 5.9 seconds. So that's actually fairly quick for this type of vehicle. It's naturally aspirated V6, making that much power, so it does actually get off the line fairly quickly. So let's have a look around the car. So this vehicle actually has a TRD option lip kit, as well as TRD wheels. They're 18-inch wheels. It's got a factory dealer optioned parking pole. No parking sensors in this one. But because this car shares the same platform as the Lexus GS, we do have those large 4-piston brakes up front to help such a heavy car stop. There's a dealer optioned door edge protectors as well, and again you can see that TRD lip kit down the back as well. So this is a 2010, so we've got facelift items on here. The rear tail lights are a facelift version. We've also got the rear deck spoiler there, which is also different for the facelift. We've got a shark fin antenna in the facelift, and up the front we've got a little bit more aggressive bumper and also grille. So that grille's different, and the bumper. Let's have a look at the back. So this vehicle doesn't have the rear seat controls. That was an additional option. I'll go through some of the options a little bit later. You can see it's just got standard armrest. We still have automatic power windows throughout the car, but nothing else fancy at the back, apart from we've got some air vents just there. Now, having a look at the driver's door, you can see you've got your memory presets here for your seat, steering wheel and mirrors, as well as the trunk release just there. All automatic power window switches. To my right side here, we've got your start stop button. You've got your mirror control here, and it does have an automatic mode, so it does fold in when you lock the car. Mirror adjustment. We've got your fuel door release just down here. I'm not sure if you can see it. We've also got the parking pole controls here. Inside here is the ETC card holder, which again doesn't work in Australia. That's a Japanese option item. That's for their tollways. Bonnet release just there. Looking at the steering wheel, we've got some basic options here. We've got our volume controls, our track controls, and also our telephone controls on the side here. We do have a display button here which lets you change what you see in that center LCD there, which goes through some of the fuel consumption type items. And we've got a mode selector here for the audio. We've also got a speech recognition button here. Obviously that doesn't work for English, that's for Japanese language. our cruise control stalk, our normal Toyota indicator and headlight controls here. We do have automatic headlights, we do have automatic wipers. Now if the vehicle is optioned with leather interior, we do also get heated and cooled front seats. So we've got the controls here on either side. Looking at this center stack, it is quite dated. So we've got, this is the climate control screen, your aircon controls, the ionizer, also the extra filter that you can switch on. We have dual zone, so you can control the temperature on either side. We also have swinging vents. You can probably just see it there. That's been switched on, so that's swinging. We switch over to our audio controls. Now in the 200 series, we've finally got proper Bluetooth audio. So everything is in there. You have to actually set it up in two different locations for the audio and the telephone, but once it's working, it works really well. We've got items like your audio controls here. This vehicle has the premium 16 speaker surround package, so you've got your surround settings there. Now the rest of the buttons on the sides, they go through either settings or navigation options. Obviously navigation's not going to work here. We also have G-Book, which is a Japanese, connected services. Obviously it doesn't work here. On the bottom here, we've got some more climate control settings, your fan off auto controls, your rear and side mirror demisters, your front demister, and also your recirculation and fresh air controls there. We do have the option for automatic, which automatically changes between the two different options. Down the bottom here, we've got your navigation unit, basic controls there again for your mode selectors. Being a Series 2, you don't have your mini disc anymore. You've just got your folder controls, that sort of stuff. They do play DVD video, but the vehicle has to be stopped with the handbrake up, and then you can watch DVD video. Obviously you can get bypasses for that, which is quite common and popular in Japan to do that. These vehicles also did have terrestrial digital TV. Obviously doesn't work on our Australian frequencies here. Looking at the middle, we've got our gear shifter. We do have a sport mode with a plus and minus. There's no paddle shifters on these. Down the bottom, eco mode, which I find I'm actually using that pretty much all the time. Sport, snow modes, traction control. We have some cup holders here. This center console storage actually opens from both ways, which is actually pretty neat. And inside there you've got a cigarette lighter, 12-volt cigarette lighter adapter, and also USB input, which was new for the 2010 facelift. We've got an automatic dimming rear view mirror there. Now, being that this car is optioned with the 16 speaker premium audio, we've actually got these speakers in the top of the seats here on the shoulder. I believe they're actually for noise cancelling. They don't actually provide surround output. The surround speakers are actually in the roof there themselves. Looking towards the back again, we've got no controls down here, but we do have cup holders and storage, as well as a 12-volt cigarette adapter there as well. The rear headrests do go up and down, all three of them, and we've got some adjustable lighting up in the roof as well. You can see the SRS curtain airbag symbol there. I believe these vehicles have 8 airbags in total, which is quite good. So let's go for a bit of a drive. So just before we take off, I did want to mention fuel consumption. You can see it's at 7.8 kilometers per litre at the moment, which is the Japanese way to measure it. When I'm daily driving this, I get about 8.9 kilometers per litre. Can't remember the conversion to litres per 100 kilometers, but I do find, if I recall correctly, it's anywhere between 10 litres per 100 kilometers to 12 liters per 100 kilometers. If you are a bit heavy on the foot, you will find that actually goes quite quickly up to 15 liters per 100 kilometers. So they are a thirsty vehicle. Now, being a luxury vehicle, we actually do have a foot handbrake, and to release that there's a lever just here, which is different from the newer models where you can just actually depress the foot pedal and that'll release it. So you have to actually release it by hand, and we're off. We do have the automatic door locks, which is, again, a lot of things in this vehicle is configurable. You can use the Toyota Tech Stream to switch things on and off. One of them is the automatic door lock. So this vehicle has factory suspension. It is quite floaty in the standard setting. However, they do have AVS, which is adjustable variable suspension, and you can alter that manually by using the sport mode, which stiffens it up a little bit, as well as the steering. Not a huge difference between having it just adjust by itself versus the sport mode, but it is there if you do need it. Also, with the suspension in Japan, you've actually got a setting in there which bases your suspension settings on the type of road you're driving on. If it's a, you know, like a hilly type of or twisty road, it might firm it up a little bit. If you're coming onto an on-ramp, there's also Navi AI shift, which helps with the gearing of the vehicle. Again, none of that works in Australia, but they are very cool features and were quite ahead of their time. When they were released. It's very comfortable in here. This makes an absolute amazing daily driving vehicle. There's that 2GR power. They are fairly quick, so it's not like it's a slouch. It's just, these were really marketed as a sports saloon, and I don't think the driving dynamics really match that. It is really just a bit of a luxury car. It's fairly boaty to drive around in factory form. I've actually had 3 of these vehicles. 2 of my past ones I've put on coilovers, so that does help a little bit. So I did want to mention some of the common issues that you might find with this vehicle, and I've had 3 of them now, so I kind of know what to expect. The first one is throttle lag. There's a very annoying throttle lag when it comes to, say you've just come to a red light and you've stopped. You're still on the brakes. The light goes green, you take your foot off the brake and go to accelerate. There's a lag between when the car takes your accelerator input, as well as a lag where the vehicle actually doesn't. So when you've stopped, the vehicle hasn't shifted out of the last gear that it was in, and most of the time it might be still sitting in maybe, say, 2nd or 3rd gear. And when you go to hit the accelerator, there's a lag for your input, and then also a lag where you feel the vehicle change back into 1st gear. It's quite annoying. It's a little bit less prevalent in the facelift model, but it is still there. My very first one was a pre-facelift, so a 2008 one, and that was quite difficult to drive because of that. So that's something to look out for. Another thing is the gear shifts are actually just overall quite doughy. It doesn't know what gear it wants to be in. When you're doing highway cruising, that's fine. It sits in sixth gear. But any sort of in-traffic driving where you're constantly slowing down, accelerating, it doesn't know which gear it wants to be in. So another common issue that I want to mention is the fact that these are prone to having warped front rotors, and I believe that's because we've got such big brakes at the front and they generate quite a bit of heat. I've had that on all three of my 200 series Crowns now. This one's got it as well. Not as bad on this one, but it is there. So that's something to keep in mind. The rotors are not cheap to replace on these. Another thing obviously is the suspension struts. For some reason the rear struts are prone to going stiff. I've had that on my very first one. I haven't had it on the last two, but I am noting that it's quite common. It's been mentioned on the Crown forums quite a bit. Now replacing those struts can be quite expensive. Brand new from Toyota, I think each one's around $600, and again you have to get that from Toyota Japan. Toyota Australia does not have those items. If you look at aftermarket items, I believe KYB make one called the X-Charge, something like that. They have the AVS adjustable variable suspension dampers as well, and I can't recall, but the last time I looked at them when I had my very first one, it seemed like it was a better option to just go to aftermarket coilovers, where you get the full manual adjustment settings. To be honest, the adjustable variable suspension was a cool feature when it came out. I don't think that many people will notice any difference in what the vehicle's trying to do. So it's much of muchness. It might be personal preference. Some people might prefer just to go straight to coilovers. I'd play you something on the audio, but again that's not really going to come across nicely. You won't actually feel or hear the bass or the quality of the audio that's coming out, but it is a very nice system. The good thing about Crowns is you really can drive them like you're sitting in an armchair. I've got both sides, the armrest on the door and the armrest to my side on the center console. They're at the same height, so it really feels like I'm sitting in an armchair. Rest my hand on the shifter, one hand on the steering wheel. It's quite comfortable. It's a very nice car to drive long distances. I'm just going to pull over to the side for a second and go through some other little bits and pieces. So some of the optional features that were offered in the Crown Athlete, you've got the leather seat package which this car has, and along with that comes the memory seat, which obviously that covers also the seats, the steering wheel and the mirrors. There's a G package option. It's not quite clear exactly what you get in a G package, but generally you find the G package has a lot more features standard. You've got your premium 16 speaker audio, which this car has. Optional radar cruise control, which was very cool for this era of vehicle that it had it. Parking sensors, this vehicle doesn't have it, but my previous ones have had that. A side camera option. You actually get a little button to the side here which just says view, I believe, and that changes the head unit to show a camera that's installed on the left hand, the passenger side mirror. That's really good for parking. So that was kind of the initial iteration, I guess, if you will, of the 360 camera, where you got only one additional camera on the side. While we're talking about cameras, we do get a nice rear view camera. Quality is okay for the era of the vehicle, and it does have adjustable markers for where you're headed with your vehicle, which is very cool. Sunroof was an option, as well as premium rear, which included heated rear seats, reclining rear seats, soft closed doors to all of the doors. We've also got electric rear shade. Now my last Crown actually had a rear cooler, so it was like a little mini fridge. Roof lighting is actually a rare feature as well. You get these two strips on either side, which provides a bit of ambient lighting, and also a parking pole, which this vehicle has. I'm sure there's a number of other features that I've probably forgotten to mention, but those are the ones that I've come across. Actually, one other feature which is actually pretty cool, they did have a lane keep assist option, as well as I believe it's called night radar. And what that did was provide you with a LCD screen similar to how the hybrid version of these vehicles have it. There was a night vision camera which would actually point out if there's pedestrians, I believe, on the road. It would highlight them on the screen. Really cool feature. So I'm just going to touch on 5 things that I liked and 5 things that I dislike about this series of Crown. So the first thing that I liked is obviously you get that 2GR V6 motor. It provides a lot of torque, a lot of power whenever you need it. The second thing is the adaptive headlights. We don't have adaptive high beams, but we have adaptive headlights. So what that means is, say at night time you're driving on some twisty roads, as you provide steering input, the headlights actually turn into the corners, which is really cool. Along with that, you've also got your normal height, automatic height adjustment for the headlights. Overall, these make a really reliable daily. There's not a lot that can go wrong with them. Parts are available because they share the same platform as the Lexus GS. Another thing that I liked is there's a lot of optional extras available, even if some of them are somewhat of a novelty. And finally, they do provide good value for the features that are on offer from standard. Now for dislike, the first thing that I disliked is they're marketed as a sports saloon, but in stock form there's absolutely nothing sporty about these cars. You know, that may be subjective, but for me, I don't believe this has the driving dynamics of a sporty saloon. Second item, exterior styling is very dated. It might have been very cool for the era of vehicle, but now in 2023, very dated. Unless you're actually doing a few visual modifications to it, maybe lowering, put some wheels, that sort of stuff. The third thing that I don't really like is the interior is a little bland. The chocolate brown interior is definitely not for most. If they went with a little bit more black in the interior, I think it would age a little bit better. We do have items in the interior such as this gloss finish in sections, which isn't too bad, but the fact that a lot of this leather is brown really didn't age nicely. I mean, you've got black, you've got chocolate brown, and then you've got red stitching in the 2010 facelift models. Doesn't quite work for me. And you've got these silver bits also in the 2010 facelift models. There's no sort of flow with the interior color theme. The other thing I don't like is the throttle lag. It can be very annoying when you're driving in traffic where you're constantly accelerating and braking, so that's something definitely to keep in mind. And finally, it is thirsty on fuel. To be honest, when I'm driving it, I am trying to be very smooth with the throttle inputs as well as my braking, but most people, I think they'll find they're closer to that 15 liters per 100 mark, which, you know, it's not quite fuel efficient at those sort of levels, depending on what sort of cars you've had before and what you consider to be fuel efficient. For me, it's anything in a V6, you'd be looking at anything that's around the 8 liters per 100 to 10 liters per 100. I think that's sort of a fair assumption for a fuel efficient V6, and these 2GRs are actually marketed as a fuel efficient vehicle. So what happened there, Toyota? Alright, I'll leave it there for today. Thanks again for watching. I hope I covered all the little bits and pieces that most people are wanting to know about these cars. Again, with driving dynamics, there's not a lot that I can talk about. They do float around quite a bit on the stock suspension. If you do the coilovers, you get a little bit more feel to the road. But again, those sort of things can't really be conveyed too well when I'm doing street driving. Some of the sportier vehicles that I might come across where I might do videos, we might go up to the mountains where I can get a little bit more aggressive with the driving and give you sort of an idea of how it feels. But with this sort of vehicle, it's really just a luxury vehicle. You're looking for something that's smooth on the road and has a bit of power when you need it. Alright, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next drive.